If I've learned anything during my time on this earth, both in life and in business, is there is one thing that is constant, and that's change. And that change oftentimes comes in the way of challenges in our lives, our personal lives, and come in the way of how relationships change. Maybe there's conflict we weren't anticipating. Maybe we come upon health challenges that we weren't knowing were going to be part of our time here. And then also in business, there's a constant change that's happening in challenges. Maybe change in market conditions. Maybe the fact that a competitor enters the marketplace and you're a business owner and you weren't really anticipating that as well. But the one thing that I've realized is that all those things on the outside of us and the one person that we're really in competition with, the one person that we're really in most challenge with is ourselves. Hi everyone, Chris Natzke here with Black Belt Leadership Speaking and Coaching with your Mind of a Champion tip of the week. About 4 years into me owning my martial arts studio, I came upon what I thought at the time was an absolute business crisis. I'd gotten a phone call from one of my martial arts friends who had received a fax. Now, I'm obviously dating the story, but he'd received a fax in his home about a competitive martial arts school that was entering the marketplace. And that school happened to be about a mile down the road from me. Now, not only was this a competitive school entering already pretty saturated marketplace from my perspective, but this was the largest martial arts school in Denver, and in fact, one of the largest in the entire United States. And as soon as I heard that news, I went into a panic. What am I going to do? Am I going to have to let go of staff? Am I going to lose students? Am I going to have to close my doors? All these things started rattling around in my mind. So what I did is I reached out to two of my mentors in the martial arts industry. And I had two separate conversations with these men. But interestingly enough, they gave me the exact same advice. When I was on the phone with them, I, of course, went into my whole story about catastrophizing, about how terrible things were. And they listened to me intently. And then both, to a person, responded in the same way. After a little light chuckle, they said to me this. They said, Chris, there's nothing you can do about that competitive martial arts school. The only thing you can do is work on yourself and your own school. Boom. I mean, I was like, all of a sudden I realized that I had some power in this situation, that I wasn't going to be reacting to what something happened, but I could actually be proactive in this situation. So I called an emergency staff meeting with my staff and told them about our new neighbors that were moving in down the street. And literally as I was explaining, I could see the color drain from their faces because they were going through the same fear and the same consternation that I was. But here's what I told them. I said, listen guys, there is nothing we can do about that competitive school down the street. I can't go beat up the instructor, at least legally. We can't firebomb the place. There's that legal thing again. But what we can do is we can make sure that everything we do is at the very top of our game. We're going to improve our phone skills. Our school is going to be the cleanest that it's ever been. We're going to have great introductory lessons and great enrollment conferences, and the classes we teach are going to be off the chain. Well, as I began to set this vision for our team, you could see them get lighter. You could see the light in their eyes start to sparkle, and they left there incredibly inspired and motivated to really work toward making our school the best it could be. And what happened? Well, in a year's time, we literally had the greatest growth that we had ever experienced in the 17 years that I owned the school. Our business went up 33% during that time, as well as I was able to take 3 of my employees that were part-time and bring them on to full-time positions. What I thought was the greatest obstacle, the greatest challenge that I had ended up being the greatest gift. So what can we learn from the situation, and what can you do going forward knowing who your real competition is almost always you and it's not the other guy? Well, here's 3 things I learned from that situation. Number 1, we are only in competition with ourselves. You know, what we want to be able to do is take a look when these situations happen and step back and look at things objectively and say, what can I do? How can I improve? What can I change? What can I integrate that I hadn't before? And how can I use this as a catalyst for positive change, knowing that we're the only one that we're in competition with? Number 2, what I learned is that competitor was actually a gift. I have to admit, when I look back at it now, I had gotten a little fat and sassy, kind of letting everything, the business was coming in well, we were growing at a great rate. But as soon as a competitor came in, I had to look at myself differently. And it wasn't about him directly, it was just how I looked at myself and my own business and what could I do to improve. And as a result, we did. And we carried on a lot of those habits to the very end of when I finally sold the school. So the fact of the matter was that competitor was a true gift to me. And then finally is that it was important for us to focus on what we were for versus what we were against. We weren't against that other school. We were for making our school the best it could be. There's a whole different shift there in terms of, it's very subtle, but when we looked at things from that perspective, that's when we began to grow. In fact, one of the things that I told my staff is, if someone came in and they mentioned the other school and inquired about it, we were never, ever to say anything negative about our competitor. We just talked about the positive aspects that we were for. So there you have it, my friends. Where do you have an opportunity to take an objective look to see who you in your personal life or you in a business is really in competition with? Because what I found is that when we really embrace that we're the only ones that we're in competition with and we hold ourselves to that higher standard, that's when magic can happen in our business and our lives. So there you have it, my friends. Thanks so much for joining me. If you found value from this, make sure that you comment, like, and share this. And if you have other topics you'd like me to share, please reach out to me and share those with me as well. So this has been Chris Natzke with Black Belt Leadership Speaking and Coaching, and we'll see you next time on the Mind of a Champion Tip of the Week.